Hi, welcome to Unnecessary Roughness, Barstool's college football podcast. Brought to you by the good folks at High Noon Hard Seltzer, which Kayce's going to tell you about right now.
I am Brandon. I have the pool pack sitting next to me here in the studio in New York. But as we talked about last week, which by the way, the new era is officially started. So I hope you all cheers your high noon. The Tequila Fiesta pack is hot in the streets. The Miss Peaches new tea pack. I cannot wait to get my hand on those. It's still cold in New York. I think it's really pretty in Chicago right now. When I was there last week, it was very pretty. It's still cold, but it doesn't matter. Summer is upon us, whether you're on a beach, in a pool, on a boat, wherever. High Noon Sun Sips gets it done. All temperatures, all the time, but it definitely hits when you're at a place that you want to get a nice cold drink in your hand. Brandon, what better than a High Noon? And if you're listening to this podcast for the first time or the millionth time, you probably know exactly where to buy your High Noon. But if you don't, go to highnoonspirits.com to find it near you. And of course, your liquor stores, your delivery apps, whatever can bring it to you. We love High Noon. Get the Tequila Fiesta pack.
This is a time of year where this specific month, I miss being down south. I don't know if you miss being in Texas during this month because while in July and August, it's hotter than the surface of the sun and it sucks to be down there. Now it's warm. It is summer down there. It's like 85, 82, 85 degrees every day. And here in Chicago, we have some days where it gets up to like 78, 80. But like tomorrow's 59. So I kind of wish I was already in summer. But I know when the actual summer gets here, I'd rather be here than there.
Can I say something that's going to make you hate me more than you already do?
Impossible.
Well, that's true. I don't know if it's because I've been on the East Coast long enough to where I've acclimated. I like this type of weather. I like the range between 55 and 75 more than I like 85 and up, unless I'm on a beach. If I'm purposely somewhere by a body of water, then I'm fine with it. But just like the day to day, I'd much rather it be 60 degrees or less than like hotter than hell, because I hate sweating to wherever I have to go. Like, I don't want boob sweat when I'm walking into the studio. I'll take boob sweat in a bikini. I don't want boob sweat just on a daily basis.
Well, here's my issue. I'm a big clothing guy. I'm a big making the switch in clothing and not looking back. So I don't like going one day I go T-shirt and shorts, and the next day I got to go hoodie and jeans. I don't like that.
That's fair.
Once I go to shorts, I'm in shorts. So tomorrow's going to be 59 degrees. I'm just going to be in shorts.
Well, no, I mean, that's stupid.
You're stupid. You ever thought about
that is also true. But I do see what you're saying. Like, it was like 75 degrees in the city like a couple days ago, and I was able to take my son to the park, and it was fun, and it was nice, and then it was like cold and rainy the next day. I get that. But I just, like, the temperatures in the South, maybe I'm just a baby. I don't know. But the temperatures in the South, they're too much. I'd much rather have to wear a sweatshirt every day than have, like, fog in my sunglasses because I walked outside.
So when it comes to change in college football, here's your first topic. When it comes to change in college football, we focus on things that have been happening over recent years. Obviously, big changes this year will be you now have a 12-team playoff as opposed to the 11 years where we had a 4-team playoff. You now have USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, the Big Ten, Oklahoma, Texas, and the SEC. Conference changing across the country. Those are huge changes. Obviously, the transfer portal has changed in the last 5 years where you now have more players moving from place to place. However, if you go back 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23, and if we use this time every year to do a top 10, top 15, top 30 ranking of the head coaches in college football, you, for the most part, would have been pretty close to the same every year. You would have changed a little bit. Like a couple years ago when Kirby Smart won back-to-back national titles, he kind of ascended to the top of the sport where he hadn't been there before. But, Saban, Dabo, Harbaugh in recent years,
Urban.
Like, these are guys over the last 10, 15 years that you can just count on being there. Obviously, Saban has been in the top one or two for the last, 25 years now. But this year, when you sit down and you look – there might be as much changing at the top of the coaching profession as there's been in any other form of college football, because Saban ain't coming out that tunnel this year. Kalen DeBoer is. Jim Harbaugh ain't coming out that tunnel. Sharon Moore is. Like, you go back to the end of last year and you rank the top 5 coaches. Harbaugh's gone. Saban's gone. Kirby's still there. But there's been so much change. And now Dabo, who's been a fixture in the top 5, I don't know if you can say that about him anymore. I think his unwillingness to welcome the transfer portal, and for whatever reason, he's just not getting the same dudes he was getting 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I don't think Dabo's – is he a top 5 coach? These are the discussions I'd like to have. It seems like, Blutman, we've got more change in the coaching than we even realized.
Yeah, there's a lot of turnover. Speaking on Dabo, I don't think he's top 5 coach. He doesn't adapt at all.
Not at all.
And I don't like the types of wide receivers that he goes after every single year in recruiting, and then is confused why things aren't working with his offense. When he gets wide receivers who are contested catch guys that don't separate at all, and is confused why DJ and Cade, etc., can't connect with them downfield, blah, blah, whatever. A lot of change in the coaching atmosphere, though. And
Kayce, I mean, this is we're in a new era of coaching.
No, we are. By the way, I can't say this enough. I love Liam's brain so much. Like, the more he talks, the more I'm fascinated in him.
Thank you.
No, I disagree, though. I still think Dabo is a top 5 coach.
I don't think he is, okay.
Well, but here's okay.
That's what we're talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, here's my point. So, like, we do this every year, and it's like, okay, who in college football has won a national title in the recent eras, right? Obviously, Dabo is there. Now, it's been a few years. Last year, when they lost to Duke, the question was, is Clemson's dynasty actually dead? And then throughout the year, we're like, okay, well, they're still not near as bad as people are acting. They're still winning these games. To me, as long as they don't fall off the face of the earth, as long as he's not, under 500, he still is at the top of that conference, and he still has won multiple national titles. I think you have to put him there simply because of that. Now, every year that we remove further and further from that, like if they have another subpar Clemson year, that's fine. But if you've won national titles as recently as he has, multiple, and have created what he's created, I think that you do have to say he's a top 5 coach, because who else would you put above him?
Well, we'll work through that. Are we down to like 2 guys who have won national titles?
It's a very small.
If you look, it was like 4 or 5 every year. Now Saban's gone, Jimbo is gone, Harbaugh is gone.
Urban's not there, so you have
all
obviously
right,
Dabo.
You got Dabo and
Kirby.
That's
it.
Who else has won a national title? Because if you go back over the last 15 years, Chizik, he won one. He's out. Then you got Saban, Jimbo.
I'm trying to think.
Urban.
I mean,
yeah,
Urban, obviously.
Yeah, you got Urban, and then 15, which is Clemson, 16 Alabama, 17 Alabama. I got those mixed up. 15 Alabama, 16 Clemson, 17 Alabama, 18 Clemson, 19 Ed Orgeron.
Yeah, he's
gone. 20 is Saban, 21 is who's 21? Kirby. Harbaugh. Yeah, you're down to a very small amount of coaches who have been at the top of this thing.
Which is why I feel like you have to put him – he might not be in the top 5, like, moving forward, like who you would want. Like, if you were building a team now, I still think that I would want him just because he has won it now.
I don't think
if
I
in
would.
2024 he says he's refusing to adapt, and then let's say 2025, then that's a different story. But – I mean, one of the 2 coaches that have won multiple national titles or a national title, you have to put him in the top 5.
I think this is a fascinating year for Dabo. There's a very good chance he ends the season on the hot seat. Because last year it got a little warm in the middle. Remember, was it Hunter from Spartanburg or Tyler from Spartanburg called?
Tyler.
And we had that 2 or 3 week stretch where the Clemson fan base kind of revolted against him a little bit, and then it all settled down. Anything short of like rising up and getting back to the national title of the playoff conversation, they're gonna get restless over there in Clemson. But look, let's just be honest. Let's throw it out there. Let's take a number like 5. Okay. Which coaches have an argument to be in the top 5 coaches? Kirby's in there. We're not worried about him. Okay.
Dan Lanning.
Is it early for Lanning, or is it early for Lanning? Even though DeBoer went to a national title,
for a lot of people is the issue.
That's the problem. So Lanning, it feels like it. Lanning is just continuing the Oregon tradition of looking like you're good enough to play for a title and not making it.
Okay, so here's my question.
They do it every year. Yeah.
Would you take like Brian Kelly over Dan Lanning?
That's what we're discussing. So let's lay out the people that have a legitimate gripe to be in the top 5. Kirby's in.
So I would put Dan Lanning in just because of what we've seen thus far, whereas like somebody like Brian Kelly, who's been coaching for much longer at a higher level.
I'm going to go and tell you, Kelly's ahead of Lanning to me.
Really?
Kelly's been to 3 playoffs. Lanning is getting credit for something he really hasn't done yet. He's like getting all this credit for just kind of for being in the playoff mix. He hasn't really done anything yet.
But I guess like at Notre Dame, and then every time, and I mean, this is not to like, to talk shit about Notre Dame, because when you're in the playoff, like I said, I would take anything to be in the playoff. But for Brian Kelly to then do what he did at Notre Dame and go to LSU, which you can argue, with better talent, whatever, didn't make it. Whereas Dan Lanning is so new as a head coach, and he's in that national conversation already. Like that to me, like again, moving forward, I would probably take Dan Lanning over Brian Kelly. Then you have James Franklin. Where the fuck do you put him? Like he can't get over the hump. So it's a fascinating conversation, but I would definitely put Dan Lanning in the top 5.
I would put Brian Kelly ahead of Dan Lanning. I'm not saying Dan Lanning's not in the top 5. But, to me, again, Lanning is continuing the Oregon tradition of you look up and they're 8-1, like, God damn, they're going to make the playoff. And then they always lose the game that gets them to go. So
hasn't he only been be the head coach for 2 years?
Yeah, but you can't put him ahead of Kalen DeBoer, who had the same exact 2 years at Washington, and he went to a national title game.
Yeah.
So and he beat him. So DeBoer's obviously got a claim to a top 5
Dabo.
spot. Kelly has a claim to a top 5 spot. Lanning has a claim to a top 5 spot. Dabo has a claim. Ryan Day has a claim to a top 5 spot. Yep.
Mike Norvell.
Mike Norvell is a guy that has a claim to a top 5 spot. Like
James Franklin, would you put him there? I would not.
I would not over these names. No. Steve
Sarkisian,
who I think kind of held them back a little bit last year, probably has a claim to a top 5 spot. And then there are other guys that I just haven't mentioned. I'm sorry if I haven't mentioned your coach yet. I'm simply laying out this idea that as we go into a wide open new era of college football, the spots at the top of the coaching table are wide open as well. Lane Kiffin could get there. There are guys who now might be positioned to have more success than they've ever had because the top line of coaches is as weak as it's ever been. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I like that. I like how you phrased that.
Yeah, I mean,
well, yeah, anytime you lose the greatest of all time at anything, it's going to be weaker. But you still know, I mean, without a doubt, Kirby's number 1, like no question. So I don't know how much weaker.
Well, using Lanning for example, he just started his career at Oregon, and it's off to a good start, and you have him in that top 5 conversation. I think starting your career now, when there is when the turnover is happening in real time, as opposed to like if you started your career in 2004. When Urban was getting to Florida, when Saban was about to get to Alabama, when Pete Carroll was at USC, when Mac Brown was at Texas.
Steve Spurrier.
Yeah. All these guys were still entrenched and established, and it was almost impossible to break through. Now the breakthrough is just right there in front of you, and you're seeing it. Like Dan Lanning had 2 years. He has a chance to be a top 5 coach perennially. The only guy I think is just locked in is in fact number 1, and that's Kirby Smart.
Yeah, I do think that you have an argument to lock in Dabo until he's no longer at Clemson, just because of the national titles. But here's my question for you with that. Who do you think this year has the highest ceiling to secure that? Because to me, it's Kalen DeBoer.
Well, no, I not to go against what I just argued, but Lanning has a chance to secure it this year with what he's gotten in the transfer portal and what he is going to roll out there this year. I like Oregon's team better this year than I like Alabama's team.
No. I mean, like yes, like I think Oregon is going to be more successful. But I'm saying of those names, like let's say Oregon makes it to the playoff. But if Kalen DeBoer is able to do what he did at Washington, at Alabama, then that absolutely solidifies him in that list. If Dabo, you look at and I'm not saying that I think that's going to happen. But if Kalen DeBoer is there now, what do you guys like that? It's like if he can create some sort of traction immediately at Alabama, he's there. But then you do have guys like if LSU is in the playoff race, like Brian Kelly's there. It's like it's a very interesting fluctuation. But at the end of the day, I think you absolutely put Kirby and Dabo.
Did y'all bring your boldest takes?
I did.
Because mine involves a couple of coaches that will be on the hot seat by the end of this year. Oh. And one of those we've mentioned in this group. So we'll move on from that. But my problem with DeBoer this year is it isn't can he have immediate success at Alabama. It's he has to have immediate success at Alabama or those Gumps will absolutely fold in on him. The world will explode. And I said it last week. I'll probably say it every week until the season starts. They're saying the right things. Alabama fans are saying, 9-3, I'll settle for that. Yeah, I understand that in first year. No, the fuck you won't. You're lying. You are absolutely lying through your fucking teeth if you think Alabama fans are going to watch 9-3 and be like, well, that was his first year. I understand. Saban went 6-6 in his first year. Yeah, well, Saban was cleaning up a fucking mess. Kalen DeBoer isn't.
You've got an Alabama fan in the room shaking his head at you again.
I don't care what that motherfucker. He's lying. He is lying. Travie is lying.
He would never lie. Jake Bass would never lie.
That's it. First of all, and this is no shot against him. Where's Jake Bass from?
From Baltimore, Maryland.
From Baltimore, Maryland. Jake Bass decided, I don't know if you grew up an Alabama fan. I really don't know that. But you decided to go to college at Alabama where you locked in being an Alabama fan for life. Is this about accurate?
My sister started in 2007.
Right.
My aunt and uncle went there. My mom's from Tennessee, and she was an Alabama fan growing up. So I started rooting for Alabama in 2007 when I was about 12 years old.
Okay.
So kind of like the I always say it was the perfect time to become an Alabama fan.
Yeah, you got lucky on that one. Anyway, so there is his path to becoming an Alabama fan from Baltimore, Maryland. He's been around it since 2007. Let me repeat. The motherfucker's been around it since 2007. You know when they became the greatest dynasty in the history of college football? Around 2007.
Yeah, 2008.
So he hasn't seen Bama fans when it goes the wrong way. He didn't see Ray Perkins and what his family had to go through when they replaced Bear Bryant. He hasn't seen what Gene Stallings' family had to go through. He hasn't seen what Mike DuBose had to go through when he lost Louisiana Tech. Them motherfuckers are vicious and awful people when they lose. They just haven't lost in almost 2 decades.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. That's why I think that, anytime you hire to a place in the South, the SEC, even like some places in the Big 12, like that's why hiring somebody that understands the culture, I think was so important. And not to make this about A&M, but I'm going to for a second. Hiring Mike Elko was so much more important because he understands the culture at A&M. Lane Kiffin to Alabama would have made more sense. Kalen DeBoer, while a fantastic coach and obviously has proven he can make it to the big dance, like he doesn't understand how crazy it is down there. Maybe he does.
Hiring outsiders to the SEC very rarely works. Now, Alabama fan and that guy in your room perked up just now because he won't say, well, Nick Saban was an outsider when he came to the SEC. That's true. He's also the greatest fucking college football coach of all time. That's what he needed to be to overcome being an outsider in SEC country. In the SEC, they don't want you to be a football coach. They want you to be a borderline criminal who would cheat to win. So,
and we will talk, by the way, we'll talk about borderline criminal cheating because Urban Meyer, he's saying too much right now. Before we do, Brandon, though, we need to talk about something that is not borderline cheating. It is straight up great product. In fact, I'm using it. If you're watching this on YouTube or Rumble, you can see Nutrafol. So I started using it as soon as I was in the postpartum phase of losing my hair. But Nutrafol in general is the best thing that you can do for stronger, thicker, faster growing hair. It's the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement. Because, Brandon, everybody knows whether you're dealing with postpartum, whether you're a guy that's receding hairline, no matter who you are, you don't want to lose your hair, right? You want hair like yours. Right, Brandon? They're fist bumping above
beautiful flowing locks.
I mean, Liam has some of the best hair I've ever seen. Everybody wants thick hair, and Nutrafol can get that done. Multiple formulas that are tailored to give your hair specifically what it needs throughout different stages. So it's not just like one chemistry and one formula fits all. They do a quiz. They know exactly what you need, and it's a full body vitamin as well. That's huge to me because as somebody who is constantly on the go, has a very young child, I can't be taking a ton of different vitamins. Nutrafol has it all for me, and you can see results in just 3 to 6 months. My hair is long and healthy, and I am going through losing hair on a daily basis. So take your first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. Again, not just for a specific type of person who's losing their hair, all types of people. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code UR. That's Nutrafol, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code UR, Nutrafol.com, promo code UR. By the way, I would just like to say, we have a fantastic podcast for hair. We always have. I mean, Jack, Mac, and Katie had gorgeous hair. Poor Big Ev, but he's not here today. The three of us, phenomenal hair.
Yeah, I was going to shout out Big Ev. Big Ev, how you feeling, buddy?
People are going to think that the podcast broke.
Second week of the show, he can't show up.
He told us before we restarted.
Yeah, he told us a couple of weeks ago that
he did.
If we restart when we restarted, he would not be able to be here the second week.
Yes, but we had to restart because we
got to get it going.
We got to get it going, and we have We have ads. We get people
so
want to hear
much.
us.
Yeah, we got to
So
make
many
that
ads.
money, y'all.
We got to make that money. Y'all.
Just a lot of good college football to talk about in May.
There
There's
is.
a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Just relax.
I'm happy.
For 30 seconds, relax.
Hey, sorry.
It's okay. Kayce, go.
I just don't want you to make fun of Liam. I don't like that.
I just told him to relax.
I know, but he's like the most relaxed person ever.
No, you don't know Liam like I do.
Okay, so what do you want to talk about next? We have multiple.
You brought up that Urban thing where Urban said NIL is basically cheating, right?
Yes. So there's two things that were in the news this week that were kind of like, the Protect the Ball Act, I think is very interesting. It kind of goes into what Urban said. But here, if you didn't see it, Urban Meyer basically, and I mean, Nick Saban did it a few months ago too. I think that the difference is that Nick Saban can say whatever he wants. And I know Urban is to a certain degree, but Urban came out and said, that the NIL is a form of cheating and that it's, an arms race, I believe is the exact term that he used. And I don't know about you, Brandon, but to me, there are two things happening here and two things that can be separately happening that go together. One, yes, there is an arms race that is absolutely out of control right now, and there is no regulation whatsoever to what is happening in the NIL, and I can't imagine trying to deal with it. And guys like Urban Meyer saying that the NIL has created something that has quite literally always existed, it just wasn't legal, makes me want to just absolutely pull my hair out.
Let me tell you something. Here's a list of the people that can shut the fuck up. And that list includes every coach over the last 15 or 20 years who's no longer coaching, who's not fighting the battle, who's not in the trenches, who's not trying to build a program right now, sitting back on their ivory tower and saying, oh, look, man, this NIL, this is crazy. This is borderline cheating. I can't believe this ain't fair. This just goes to the highest bidder. Somebody like Urban Meyer, who won 3 national titles in one of the most competitive eras in college football. You know what they had to do to win those national titles? You know what you have to do at Florida to get top 5 recruiting classes every single year? I'm not throwing stones at anybody, and I'm not judging anybody for anything. But guess what? Ohio State, Florida, these teams know how to level the playing field in recruiting. They always have. This didn't just start 3 years ago. Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, all of these teams have known forever how to go out and make sure they get the best players using any means necessary. So, Urban, don't bring your bullshit holier than thou. Oh, my God, this is almost like cheating. Motherfucker, you were one of the craftiest coaches in the world at getting players the way you need to get players. Shut the fuck up.
That's what I'm saying.
Now, somebody's got to flip this goddamn show, Jake, because that needs to be out there to the people.
Yeah,
if I got to do it, I'll do it.
Yeah, no, I do want to learn how to clip because we need to clip that out.
I've already sat down. I sat down with Corey. Jake, just send me the video. I'll cut the motherfucker.
No, I'm learning too. We're learning. Okay, without Katie, it's going to be a learning curve a little bit. All right, our mom is no longer on the podcast. No, I completely agree with you, and that's why I roll my eyes when I see it. And the most frustrating part is there is some truth in what he is saying. The problem is who is saying it. There is some truth in the fact that there is no regulation. That guys are now openly able to say, well, I'm not even going to come take a recruiting visit unless you cut me a check. Things like that are happening. However, this has always been happening, paying guys under the table. And Urban went on to say, like, well, now it's just a bunch of donors having to get money together to prove to players they have the money to pay them. What the fuck else has been happening? How do you think Cam Newton went to Auburn? Like, those things make me so upset because it's such hypocrisy. And I don't want to believe that Urban is dumb enough to think people don't see through it. Like, I don't think he's trolling either. It's just such a frustrating thing because if you think that your program has not been cheating for the entire time you have been a fan of them and much longer, then you're just a moron. Every program has been cheating. Now it is legal cheating. And then, Brandon, there does need to be some regulation. And
there needs to be, and they'll get it. I hope they'll get it figured out.
Well, this whole, which, listen, I think the NCAA needing protection is always a laughable thing. And Liam, I know that your brain works in different ways than ours does, but like I can't even pretend to get into like the legal aspects of all this. But this new bill that is proposed, the Protect the Ball Act, that's like the House versus the NCAA, this to me, I hate that the NCAA is looking for protection, but they also need it because now we're looking at players since 2016 being able to seek NIL money in like back payments. That to me is a problem.
Yeah, that's a bit ludicrous.
That's stupid.
I don't think there's much else to say on that. That's just idiotic.
It's amazing how fast these coaches, going back to Urban for a second, it's amazing how fast these great coaches turn into old men yelling at clouds as soon as they get away from the game.
Yeah.
And they act like, oh, when I was coaching, it was pure. It was, Urban. At Florida, you had one of the biggest criminal enterprises in the history of college football. You had, I mean, look at the legacy of those Florida teams, which were on the football field great, but goddamn, they're not making 30 for 30s about the Florida State team from 2013. They're not making 30 for 30s about the criminal, behavior of those teams. They are of your teams.
I mean, all you have to say is Aaron Hernandez. Like, you don't even have to bring up anybody else.
Yeah, well.
You don't have to.
All right. You have your boldest take?
Yeah.
Kayce, you have your boldest take?
I do.
Tell them about it. I bet we have another advertiser that's bold, though.
Rocket Money. They're bold as hell because you know what? They get your ass in shape. They say, hey, you're spending too much money on things you don't want to be spending money on. Or maybe you are spending money on things you want to spend, but you need to know what you've got in your bank account. So we've been talking about Rocket Money forever. Again, I say this every single time we talk about Rocket Money. I've been using it for much longer than they've been friends of the podcast because I am the queen of signing up for things. Like I wanted to sign up for something on ESPN Plus one day, no free ads, completely forgot that I didn't want to pay for that over and over. Rocket Money reminded me. They help you cancel your unwanted subscriptions every single month. If you go to rocketmoney.com/rough, it's a free app, but it's not just that. And I know when I say that, people are like, okay, well, once you do it, you see it. They help you budget everything. You can see exactly how much money you have across the board in one app. And if you don't want to cancel something on your own, you don't want to dispute something on your own, Rocket Money will do it for you. It's a personal finance app that finds and cancels things for you, monitors your spending, helps lower your bills, which, Brandon, we all know in this day and age, lowering your bills is a big deal. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel those unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/rough. That's rocketmoney.com/rough. We love it. We love saving money. Brandon, you have so many kids. I have one kid, and it's expensive. I don't know how you do it with 4.
Well, I'm just a better overall quality human being than you are.
Well, that is true, depending on the day. But Rocket Money makes you a better money spender, I guess, than me. Who knows? Although last week you did notice it was like May 6th, and you had spent way more money than you thought.
Every time you do that ad, I go look, and every time I put my phone down in disgust. Whatever, it doesn't matter. All right, our boldest take, and this how about this is our boldest take for mid-May, okay? Because by the time the summer comes around, we might get bolder. We might decide, no, I'm going.
We intake more information. We learn more. We become more confident in our boldest takes as the days go by.
I have to tell you guys, I think the people that are listening to this during the pauses, they're fist bumping every single time.
Not every time.
Almost every single time.
Just
every
a
time
few.
Which is, I love it. It's cute. I think Brandon and Liam, I have to tell you, I think that my boldest take will get less bold the closer we get to the season because mine is bold.
Okay.
Bold.
Who wants to go first? Kayce, go first.
You want me to go first? So one of the changes, like you mentioned it off the top with conference realignment, one of the things I know that we're going to slip up on, or at least I know I will multiple times, is instead of saying Power 5, we're going to have to say Power 4 now because there are only Power 4s. But I think in 2 of the Power 4 conferences, we're going to see realigned teams win those conferences. In 2 of the 4, in half.
Well, just based on what the information I have, that means you have Oregon winning the Big Ten and Texas winning the SEC.
Yes, it is.
I don't think. Yeah. Now listen.
But
Oregon
the reason
winning
I say I think it's going to get less bold is because I have, talking myself out of Georgia the closer we get to the season. Because, Georgia is just so good. And I understand that, last year was, not exactly what they would have wanted. But, Georgia is fucking good. But I have hyped myself up. And, I hate saying it as an Aggie. But I truly believe that could be something that is actually going to happen. That we're going to see a Big 12 team win the SEC and a Big 10 or a Pac-12 team win the Big 10.
I certainly think Oregon's going to be a force to be reckoned with immediately in the Big Ten this year. Now, that depends on how far Michigan falls apart or how far they fall off, not apart. I don't think they're going to fall apart. But in both those conferences, but this is a bold take. You have Ohio State and you have Georgia. So they're going to have to overcome a couple of monsters who are already entrenched.
Yeah, no, I know. That's why I'm saying it's the bold. It would have been easier for me to say one of the 4, right? One, and again, maybe this is just me having sunshine and rainbows after we talked down about them last week, but maybe Colorado sneaks in with the Big 12.
Well,
you don't know.
The wrong one, but there's a very good chance a new team.
Arizona?
No. I think Utah.
Oh.
Kyle Whittingham could also be up there for top 5 coaches as well.
Kyle Whittingham is a top 5 coach in my opinion.
Extremely underrated. Just nobody cares because he's in Salt Lake City.
But I think Utah or Arizona could be in the mix to win the Big 12.
I think that the only conference that you know for sure it's not going to happen is the ACC. That's obvious.
Well, you're just really shitting on Cal and Stanford and SMU
I mean,
now.
listen.
Yeah, Jaden.
There's my bold. You know what, Brandon? There's my bold take.
What are the chances Jaden Ott wins the Heisman and carries his team to a conference championship?
Under 0.1%, but big J and Ott fan. So
big Jaden Ott fan.
Yeah.
You know what you like to do?
Transferred anywhere. What?
You just like naming a player every now and then and claiming yourself a big fan of it.
Everyone should know J and Ott, and
that's fine. Everybody knows Jaden Ott. That's fine.
Oh, they do. They weren't when I was tweeting about him 2 years ago. I wrote a nice feature piece on him before last season as well. I got an interview.
Go ahead.
Talk with him.
UNLV. Who does everybody need to know?
Oh, I was going to talk about UNLV later. We're going to have a little quarterback battle there with Hajj Malik Williams transferring from Campbell and Matthew Sluka transferring from Holy Cross. I was talking to Brian Mary, and he's very excited about the Rebels this season. They could be better than last year when they went 9-5. Ricky White, too. I tweeted you last night. Unbelievably good receiver.
Who should we be worried about in UTSA this year?
UTSA. I'm kind of lower on UTSA than I normally am, so I don't really have an answer for this. I'd have to go back and just look at the roster and try and I don't have a good answer for that now.
Okay. All right. So Kayce's bold take is 2 transfer teams, or for lack of a better word, will win Power 4 conferences.
Yeah, 50% of the conference champions this year will be new teams to that conference.
And it's fascinating, too, because if Georgia and Ohio State were to lose their conference championship, in the 12-team playoff era, it would not hurt as much at all.
It wouldn't. But I do think that, and I hate when people say, like, oh, like the SEC roots for the SEC as a whole, because you're a prime example of that. Like, you hate every team in the SEC because except for Mississippi State. However, I do think that there is an element of, like, if you have a school like Texas, or Texas more so, I feel like, but like Oregon, like Arizona, I mean, obviously the ACC, it's not going to happen, come in the first year and win your conference, that's just a blow to the ego of the conference as a whole, in my opinion. Because, like, that's not like the whole, like, oh, well, you can't play in the big bad SEC, and if Texas or Oklahoma comes in year one and does it, like, that is, like, that kind of, kicks you down a notch.
Texas. Oklahoma has no chance to do it.
I'm just saying, like, in general, like, if USC comes into the Big Ten after everybody talks about how soft USC's defense has been for the past few years and wins it, which is not going to happen. But if they do, that is a knock to the conference as a whole, because you want to talk all that shit until a new team can just come in and run the table. I don't think it's going to happen, but it could.
What's your boldest take?
I was thinking about the UTSA thing too. All I could think of is the Corian Clark. So
you don't have to go back to UTSA.
Well, I want to, because the Corian Clark goes.
I know that you're embarrassed.
Two defensive players, excluding Travis Hunter. He doesn't count because offense. Woo. 2 defensive players, top 8 in Heisman voting.
2 defensive players, top 8 in Heisman. I'm guessing, having talked to you, it's guy defensive end from Tennessee.
Yep, James Pierce will be one of them.
And defensive end from Florida State.
Payne could be one of them, but I think that I think the second one's kind of wide open. I think that there's a lot of options.
Are you gonna leave that box not filled in?
Yeah, like it could end up being like a Will Johnson if he goes crazy, or maybe it's a Malachi Starks, or there's Xavier Nwonka has no chance. But hey, what if Iowa wins a bunch of games because their defense again because the words are tough. I don't know. There's a bunch of options. JTT. JTT, we saw what he did against Penn State all the way long time ago. Like, I think that there's a bunch of guys that could do it, honestly.
Will Johnson's a great answer for that.
Maybe not a bunch of guys, but Michael Williams is still going to blow up at Georgia. There's waiting for him. So, like, I think that there's a healthy amount of players.
I think the second one, by the way, I think you discounted him early because of the offense he plays. I think Travis Hunter could be a top 8 Heisman finalist.
Count.
But
he doesn't count.
Don't you think his game is powered by how good he is defensively?
Yes, but he doesn't count because he's going to get so many votes for his work offensively
for being both ways.
He's just
okay.
I don't
like
know
if
how
he goes to the Heisman,
athlete. Like, he doesn't count.
If he goes to the Heisman ceremony or if he's in the Heisman voting, it absolutely has to do with the fact that he's a two-way player, not just defensive.
So he can't count for that. This is purely defensive players.
Okay, all right.
So two of them. One of them, James Pierce. Other one, wide open. Maybe it was someone I didn't mention.
Not that James Pierce isn't a great player, but you're higher on him than anybody I've ever heard.
No, he's like well-embedded moles are saying he should be the guaranteed number one.
Where are these moles? Because they're embedded. Yeah. No way to know.
No way to know. That was a John
well
Rustin
embedded
quote.
too, by the way.
I have my bold take here.
Okay.
Again, this might not be the only time we do a bold take, so I don't know if it ends up being my boldest take. There are two coaches at top 10 annually top 10 programs that by the end of this year will be either on the hot seat or fired entirely.
Can I guess one of them?
Well, considering they're written on this page, I don't know.
I didn't look at the page.
Okay.
I know Dabo is definitely one.
Dabo is not one.
Really?
Dabo is not one. The only way he'd get to the hot seat is Clemson fans just being really, really fucking stupid, which is possible. But these two, I think, can play their way onto the hot seat very, very easily. Who do you think?
I was thinking Lincoln.
At USC. No.
Okay.
Sark?
I was wrong.
No. He just went to the playoff last year.
Well, I don't know what your brain's thinking. I thought for sure you would have Dabo there if you did. Earlier in the show, we were talking about how you don't think he's a top 5 coach right now.
I don't think that gets him fired if he's like the number 6 best coach in the country.
Well, Clemson fans were pissed last year.
Dabo to me exists
higher on Dabo than I am.
Dabo to me exists in a world where Clemson should just ride with whatever he gives them for now, and he should never be fired from Clemson.
He
is the reason Clemson ever has done anything. He won 2 national titles at Clemson in an era where Ohio State and Alabama and all were going crazy, and he stood up and beat Alabama twice. That man should be able to work at Clemson until he just says, I don't want to work at Clemson anymore.
I 1,000% agree with that. But don't you also kind of put in like what we talked about with Alabama fans? Now it's less at Clemson because, for however you want to think that. But Clemson fans were pissed at him last year.
Yeah.
Like, I agree with you. If I had Dabo, he could stay there until the cows come home. But Clemson fans wanted change like last year, and he lost like 3 games.
Here are the 2 coaches I believe will be on the hot seat or even possibly fired by the end of the season.
Okay.
They are both entering their 3rd year at their school. One is Brent Venables at Oklahoma. The other is Brian Kelly at LSU. Now, people say, oh, my God, Brian Kelly went 9-3 last year. Brent Venables went 10-2. Let's break these down. First of all, Brian Kelly, 9-3 at LSU is good enough to get you fired. They don't like 9-3 at LSU. They want to win national championships at LSU. And he's starting to say things that they don't like, which is a bigger deal in the SEC than just wins and losses. If you start saying things we don't like, if you start saying things that lead us to believe you're not doing everything you can to win games, when he comes out and he says, we're not going to get in the business of paying for players, LSU fans just are not going to like that. You're talking about a fan base that sits idly by when some really fucked up shit goes on with acquiring players. So you've got LSU that goes 9-3 last year. Well, why did they go 9-3? They had a Heisman winner, 2 first-round receivers, because they fielded the worst defense in the history of the school. And one time you can get away with that. One time Brian Kelly can say, well, I hired the wrong defensive coordinator. Yeah, you fucking hired him, though. In your 2nd year on the job, you went out and got a bad defensive coordinator. That's on you. If it happens again, it's doubly on you, and the fans are actually going to notice this time. If you look at LSU, 9-3 last year, which is not a good positive step in the right direction for them. They opened the season with USC, then they're at South Carolina, they're home to UCLA. Let's say they go 3-0. You got Ole Miss on the schedule, you got at A&M on the schedule, at Florida on the schedule, Alabama on the schedule, Oklahoma on the schedule, at Arkansas, which Arkansas is probably going to be terrible. But are there 4 losses in this group? Maybe. And the first 2 years, he's opened both by losing to Florida State. If he opens year 3 by losing to USC at a neutral site, all hands on deck because we're headed towards the hot seat. That's happening.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. I don't know what LSU fans think they can go out and get right now.
That doesn't matter in the SEC. You know that.
No, but I do think it doesn't matter to people who are who are thinking it. But at the same time, you go out and you get Brian Kelly, who, like you mentioned off the top of the show, has made it to the playoff 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it was with a different team, but that is one of those things where it's how long do you want to give him to build, because you know that he can. when, it is a more wide open coaching situation right now. I mean, yes, you do have Kirby, you do have Dabo, but who the fuck is LSU going to go out and get?
I don't think he's getting fired. I do think if he goes 8-4 or worse, he is directly on the hot seat going into his 4th year. Okay. Directly.
And then Venables.
And Venables is more likely to get fired than Kelly. Kelly's firing potential is like 2%. Venables like 20. Oklahoma went 10-2 last year in the regular season, 10-3 after they lost to Arizona, but they weren't really a 10-2 team. They had one great win against Texas when Sark shit down his leg. But otherwise, they were scraping by some bad teams all year, and they lost to Kansas and Kansas and Oklahoma State. Barely beat UCF, barely beat Cincinnati. Like, this was a team that was just kind of surviving as opposed to thriving. But now we're in year 3, and that's fine. You have your quarterback now, 5-star Jackson Arnold. He's Mr. Everything, Mr. Go Get It, Mr. Our next superstar. Okay, let's look at the schedule. They're in the SEC. What do you think he needs to feel safe? 8 wins? 9 wins?
I'd say 8.
I mean, 8 at Oklahoma, again, is a recipe to get fired, but let's say 8. I'm going to ask you if there's 4 possible losses in this schedule. They're going to start 3-0. They got Tulane at home. They got a couple other, and Tulane's not a pushover. Houston, Tulane, and then Nichols, I think. So they start 3-0. Then they welcome Tennessee to Norman. At Auburn, Texas and Dallas, South Carolina at home, and here's their last 4, okay? Here are their last 4 games. At Ole Miss, at Missouri, Alabama at home, at LSU. I ask you, are there 4 potential losses in that schedule?
Easily.
Not even a question. There might be 6 potential losses in that schedule.
There's... I would say almost for sure 3 losses.
That's a nasty and you say most years at Ole Miss, at Missouri, you're okay. Those are both top 10 quality teams this year. Mm-hmm. At LSU is a top 10 quality roster. At Auburn, they're at least, I assume they're going to be better, although they're still not taking that big of a step. Texas is Texas this year. Alabama's Alabama. Tennessee ain't no walk in the park. I mean, this is a very, 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 very tough schedule for a coach who went 6-6 and then a fake 10-2. If they look up and he's 7-5 in year 3, I think the natives are getting restless for Brent Venables.
So here's my question for you, because it's a double-edged sword with this, right? Because I would think that with, let's say in a vacuum, which is such a cliche, but in a vacuum, Oklahoma moves to the SEC. You do give him a little bit more of a leash to have a quote down year because you're playing in a different conference. The problem is that your brother in arms that is coming into the SEC is Texas, who a lot of people think will have immediate success. So that does play against him.
No.
But part of me wants to believe that Oklahoma fans have enough brains to sit back and be like, guys, we're not playing, Iowa State anymore. We're not playing TCU. Not that TCU's been bad. They've obviously been good too, but we're playing Alabama. We're playing Tennessee. We're playing Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin. But then you look across the state line and you've got Sark, who I think could potentially win the SEC. So it's a bad spot for them.
Here's where you're wrong.
Of course,
if logic
naturally.
and reason applied here, what you just said would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
They're now in the SEC. Leashes don't exist.
Yeah.
Ed Orgeron got fired a year and a half after winning the national title with one of the greatest teams of all time. There is, and I see, we had T-Bob on Mostly Sports. He said it, and I'm going to say it again. I kind of articulate a little bit, but there's not enough oxygen to support all the heavy hitters in the SEC right now. Because if you look around, who expects their team to win at least 10 games? LSU does. Texas does. Oklahoma does. Alabama does. Georgia does.
Ole Miss.
Well, guess what? Ole Miss is up right now. Missouri's up right now. I just named 8 teams, and that's not even naming Tennessee, who expects their coach to win 10 games. Like, everybody can't win 10 games. Everybody can't be great. But the problem is, if you're in a league and you're not one of the, and you feel like you're Oklahoma or you're Texas or you're a blue blood or it is your birthright to be great, you're not going to accept, well, we're just playing better teams. They shouldn't be better than us. That's why Brent Venables will be on the hot seat by the end of the season.
I do agree with that. Here's a way to make that question even a crazier answer. Who in the SEC doesn't expect to win 10 games? Like, realistically.
Well, do you mean who in the SEC whose fan base can handle not winning 10 games on a year in, year out basis, or who this year? Because obviously this year Arkansas doesn't expect to win 10. We don't expect to win 10. I don't think you guys expect to win 10.
Oh, I think A&M fans are delusional enough. And again, I think Mike Elko is a much better coach than Jimbo is, but I think A&M fans think that he could win 10 games.
And maybe he could, but again, look around. Like there's not enough food to feed everybody this year. Everybody thinks they're good.
It's like Vanderbilt for sure doesn't think they're going to win 10
Kentucky
games.
probably doesn't think they're going to win 10 this year.
I don't know.
I mean, look, you're talking about the lunatic fringe of everybody. There's South Carolina fans out there that think they're going to go 11-1.
Fair.
But they're not real. Like there's no way a Florida fan could look at that shitty coach and that tough schedule and think they're winning 10 games.
Oh, I don't know, Brandon. I know you did this too. You tweet. I decided to, and I think you've been on it, but I decided to dip my toe in the Cameo game. And one of the first requests I got was somebody wanting me to talk about why Florida can win the national title, like seriously, this year.
By the way, well, I just laid out the schedule for Oklahoma.
Florida.
Have y'all looked at Florida's schedule?
Yes.
Florida's schedule's diabolical.
I'm just going to bring it up right now, just so we can point at them and laugh a little bit.
Top 3 hardest schedule in the country. No?
Top 3 hard. Not only is I think the hardest schedule in the country this year, I think it's the hardest schedule I've seen in the last 10 years. This is an absurd schedule. Now they open the season against Miami at home. Now,
we know how you feel about Miami.
Who knows how good Miami's going to be, but certainly opening with a rival, an in-state rival who took in a bunch of transfers is not – they're not opening with Nicholls State is what I'm trying to say. They then have Samford at home, and Samford at home might be the last sure win they've got on the schedule. It might be the only sure win they've got on the schedule.
Samford doesn't have their quarterback from last year, Michael Hyers.
Just relax. Just relax.
Just win that game.
Relax.
I love the Liam facts.
That's why I said it's their sure win. I said it's.
I'm agreeing.
But why are you agreeing with that? That was easy.
He was adding color to it.
People know how even more.
We already fist bump.
Lost.
We already fist bump.
Fist bump. Twice.
So Miami, Samford, which is their most winnable game because they're without their quarterback. They got Texas A&M the next week. They're at Mississippi State, and you know what? I'll be nice. Let's say that's a win for them. Okay, let's say that's a win. I don't know. I don't think it's a sure win, but whatever. They got UCF. You know what happens when these Florida teams play UCF? They absolutely batten down the hatches. At Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, at Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State. God damn.
That is the last half of that schedule is brutal.
They could end the season with 5 top 10 games in a row.
Brutal.
No, Georgia's going to be top 10, no doubt. Texas will be top 10. LSU might be by November. Ole Miss might be by November. And Florida State might be by November.
Yeah, it's violent. It's a violent back end.
It's a violent back end of the schedule. Even easing into it, like at Tennessee, Kentucky, before that 5-game stretch is not easy. That's a nasty schedule.
Opening with Miami is not easy. A&M's not easy. Mississippi State's not easy.
At Mississippi State's not easy, but we'll see. We're going to score a lot
of SEC games in general, yeah. No, I just looked at, so Sports Illustrated does have them at number 1. You know who they have at number 2 for the toughest schedule of the season? Arkansas.
Who's number? Oh, 1 was Florida.
Number 1 is Florida. Number 2 is Arkansas. 3 is Oklahoma. Wait, you know what? This is just in the SEC. So
yeah, but it turns out if you take the toughest conference in the country and add Oklahoma and Texas, it gets tougher.
What the heck?
What?
That's crazy.
Actually, you know what? It's not just the SEC. I thought it was because I kept scrolling. So the top 7 they have in the SEC. The top 7 hardest schedules are in the SEC, and then you get to 8 is Georgia Tech, 9 is USC, 10 is UCLA.
Woohoo!
You stop.
What?
Just
Big Ten.
Okay, just relax.
College football, man. I also don't want Florida to throw DJ Lagway into the fire at the end of the season. They're gonna. That you know why they're going to? It's a last chance.
It's the coach trying to save his job.
Exactly. Yeah.
The coach. They're going to start let's say they start 3-3. He's going to start game 7, and he's going to try to save his job. Mm-hmm. And that's the only way he's going to save his job because they're going to be god awful.
Yeah, that's the playbook.
Be very tough sledding for a true freshman quarterback, even though he is an exceptional talent. To have to play those final 5 games, I hope it doesn't hurt his confidence.
How many? You got somebody else for us?
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know what is tough is when data brokers collect your personal information and profit off of your privacy. Yeah, that's never fun. And in this day and age, everything uses technology. Everything has your information all over the place. And cyber criminals need details like your name, date of birth, and social security to steal your identity. And that is a very easy thing to do, much easier than you might think. But our friends at Incogni have created a way that it is so easy to do for you and incredibly hard, because if you do it on your own, the average person needs 304 hours to manually complete all the individual data removal requests needed to secure your privacy. They do it all for you automatically, which means it is an incredibly easy decision for you. And Brandon, I know you've had it happen. I've had it happen when people can steal your credit card information, obviously the worst being able to steal your identity. I've not had that happen. Dave has had that happen. He had somebody hack into his bank account. It is the biggest pain in the ass, and there's really nothing that you can do to stop it unless you use a company like Incogni, because they can help not only protect your information, but also can reduce spam and prevent scam attacks by opting you out of their databases automatically. So if you're listening to this, your information is obviously all over the internet because you are living on the internet right now. Use code RUFF at the link to get an exclusive 20% off an annual Incogni plan. And that link is Incogni, incogni.com/rough. That's 60% off an annual Incogni plan. And again, it does it automatically for you. You don't have to do any of it. You can be safe on the internet, and you don't have to worry about your bank account numbers, your identity, none of that with Incogni. And we love them, Brandon. We love people that keep us safe, don't we?
Yes. Whenever you spell out the advertiser in an ad, I always think of USHERRAYMOND. It's an Usher song. Usher.
You know what? Looking at you, and I know you well, so I understand. I know your music taste. I've been in car rides with you, or we have sung to many songs together. Looking at you on paper, I would not, say people would think that you're an Usher fan.
USHERRAYMOND.
So Brandon, I have a question.
7 o'clock.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Run YouTube. They'll cancel us.
I'm in my drop top.
Don't do it.
What do you know about Yazoo City, Mississippi?
I know a lot about it. Fletcher Cox was from there. A tornado hit it in 2010. A friend of mine, Brian Davis, is from there. Why?
Because Chris Bell's from there, Louisville wide receiver. He's going to be really good entering his third year.
My God.
He's good.
Kayce, have you read the prep sheet?
I have, of
course.
The
Blutman prepared. I'm just going to read some bullet points here.
Yeah, no, I love
what?
This. Liam, I love it. Don't you let him talk shit.
Urban Meyer, bullet point. Yeah. Kayce, yeah. This next to last bullet point is this. Kayce, Brandon, and I each get a few minutes to bring up whatever we want. Which means
Liam has something he wants to bring up.
I, Liam Blutman, get to bring up whatever I want. So Liam.
No.
Liam.
Yes, no, Liam, we need to know.
The floor is yours.
I look, I did a college football podcast back in the day, whatever, and this is something I do every so often, is have the hosts, like the people on, just bring up whatever they want, create some conversation that way. And I don't know, it's May 13th. I thought
that's awesome. Yeah. Bring up whatever you want.
I kind of alluded to it earlier that UNLV is going to be a really, really good team, even after a historic 9-5 season last year. Barry Ohm's got a really good group. All right, talk to you about Hajj Malik Williams, the Campbell transfer, and Matthew Sluka, ginger quarterback from Holy Cross, who arrives in June. They're going to have a quarterback battle. Ricky White, exceptional talent. He's going to be a top 5 producing receiver in the country, NFL draft pick. But how about cornerback Cameron Oliver? He's going to be an NFL guy too. He's got the length. He's a sticky coverage guy. That's going to help them a lot. How about back to the offense, Brand? Let's go back to the UNLV offense.
Sure, back to the UNLV offense.
Brendan Marion's go-go offense. How about Jaden the Jet Thomas at running back? I mean, is that the best name for a running back in the country? The Jet?
It's pretty good.
And the Jet, yeah, it's really good. He's explosive. He's really good. Pure speed. They have a young receiver, Corey Thompson Jr., that they really like. Great catch.
Now, is that Corey Thompson's kid?
I would, yeah. Yeah.
What gave it away, Brandon?
he's got really good hands, flashes that a lot, and they're really high on them. They're working on his route running, which Brendan Marion's really good at. developing their.
Did Brennan Marion write these bullet points for you?
No. Brandon Marion, you might know from his time at Texas and Pitt. Jordan Addison, one of his guys, Xavier Worthy, Ricky White now. And then they have a guy from Texas transfer, Kayce, 6'3" target, had 4 for 108 back in the day in the Alamo Bowl against Washington. He's back.
What was the name of that bowl?
The Alamo Bowl.
The Alamo Bowl?
Alamo Bowl.
Alamo.
Not Alamo.
That's why I say.
No, you say Alamo.
You
Alamo
say
Bowl. That's why I say Alamo, blah, 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 blah.
You go to San Antonio, you go to that old building. What's it called?
Alamo, but I say Alamo. I'm just realizing that. Oh, man.
I know I'm from Texas, and I realize that, we say things weird too, but I've never heard someone mispronounce the Alamo.
I didn't mispronounce it. I just said in Liam voice.
You just said it wrong.
Nonetheless, UNLV, their offense is going to be possibly even better than last year. It's the go-go offense. You're going to enjoy watching that because I'm going to make sure you watch UNLV football. They got at Houston, at Kansas, and versus Syracuse, obviously at home on the schedule this season. It's a fairly difficult schedule, but hey, UNLV is going to be really good again. So that's what I had to say.
There you go.
Yep.
I love this. I love the Liam rant point of the show.
You're going to do that every week.
I can, yeah.
Yes,
I'm sure I could find a few other things to talk about.
What would you like to talk about, Liam? Oh, fist bump. We need a fist bump, Calvin.
I want to hear what you guys had to bring. I was more hyped up for that. The UNLV stuff I tweet about. I don't get to hear what you guys were
Kayce?
planning to talk about.
Well, I know that this is, and I said this in the group text, that it's kind of similar to what we did last week, but it even furthered it when I got to the office today because I asked some people in the office, and the debate got even bigger because, I don't know how we've made it an hour into the show without talking about the fact that EA did unveil or it leaked the cover, which is, I don't know, I assume it's not the only one, but it had Donovan Edwards, Quinn Ewers, and Travis Hunter in the front, and then it had Jalen Milroe and Carson Beck kind of on the side, and Donovan Edwards from Michigan is front and center. And I had a huge group text with a bunch of my guy friends, and it was all kind of popping off of if it was JJ McCarthy or even Blake Corum, that Michigan spot would make sense. They won the national title, but then they were like, do people even know from a casual fan standpoint who Donovan Edwards is? And that opened up the bigger conversation is outside of, I think, the obvious, which is an Arch Manning because he's a Manning brother or a Manning kid, but he hasn't played yet. Who is the most recognizable names in college football? I don't know if you put Donovan Edwards up there.
Well, no, but for the purposes of what they were doing, I'm fine with it. It would be hard to not have the defending national champs represented. Right. And he is the most recognizable player. And frankly, I think he's a better running back than Blake Corum. So,
well, he also in the big games last year against Ohio State and obviously in the national championship, he had monster games.
Remember 2 years ago against Ohio State when he had the 2 90-yard touchdown runs. And then, of course, he got him going in the national title game. He was their best player in the national title game. So, I as much as I like to make fun of Michigan, I think that selection's just fine. But who's the most recognizable player in college football? I do think we're in a year where the recognizability of college football players is probably down. Mm-hmm. And I do think the portal lends itself to keeping that down too, because guys don't establish themselves 3 and 4 years anymore. They kind of just go from spot to spot. But Shedeur is almost certainly number one. And now with his Twitter stuff, I mean, he's getting recognized both good and bad. But I think he's number one. He's the number one most recognizable name in college football. And I don't think there's a strong number two because even with the great players, Carson Beck's going to be a good player. He's not that recognizable. Nobody knows what Quinn Ewers looks like.
I mean, even
people know what Quinn Ewers looks
like.
Mullet.
The mullet.
They just think of the mullet and they don't be like,
does he even still have the mullet?
No.
Yeah. So I don't think casual fans.
There is a clear number two, though.
Who is the clear number two?
Clear number two is Travis Hunter. And I think kids kind of resonate with Travis Hunter. I think that they watch his YouTubes and all that, and they're like, "Whoa, like I could relate to this guy." And
that's fine.
They watch him stream video games all the time. So I think that
I see Travis Hunter being in there. I also think this is a conversation we'll have another day. But if we were just going to say, forget position, who's the best player in college football? I think Travis Hunter by a mile.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean,
I think it's Travis Hunter by a mile.
that's I think that people wanted to, and I was obviously a part of that, and will continue to be a part of like the Colorado hype train to a certain degree. But like to do what you do. And like what he has done, and like I understand Colorado only won 4 games, but that is fucking crazy to be able to perform at that level on both sides of the ball and never take a break. But I was just, I mean, again, I'm not an EA NCAA player. I do want to learn how. Like I seriously actually want to learn how now that it's back. But did the cover surprise you at all, Brandon? Did you think that we would see Donovan Edwards front and center?
No, it didn't. Well, this is not the cover. We believe this is a secondary cover for maybe one of their digital editions. We don't think this is the cover.
This
Gotcha.
this is a cover for a more expensive version of the game.
Yeah.
There will still be this is the middle expensive. There's still the cheapest cover we don't know, which is going to be the regular
and the Heisman
that we
edition.
always get. Then there's going to be the most expensive one, which
I'm a dumb person here. Like I'm stupid. What makes it more and less expensive? Like what do you?
So
buy?
they can everything that you can. Every video game comes with things that you can unlock.
Yeah.
Right.
Be it, and I'm just using these for example because it doesn't necessarily mean this is it, but be it extra uniforms, extra mascots, maybe
100%
old players,
pay for uniforms,
uniforms, stuff like that. They do these ultimate teams where you can buy players and stuff, and for what? So if you buy the ultra expensive version, you get most of that just unlocked from Jump Street.
Gotcha.
And you don't really have to either earn them or buy them along the way.
Okay. I figured you could buy any of them. So this is like the deluxe. I think they called it the deluxe edition. Or this is not the
digital
like.
deluxe.
We think the Heisman edition is the highest. Is going to be the highest one.
Yeah.
So we haven't seen the cover, but I don't know. I think it accomplished. At first, I thought it was underwhelming. I think it accomplished exactly what they needed to get across, which was, by the way, we got the players in the game now. Because it didn't just show guys in the tunnel; it showed guys in the tunnel with their names. It showed Hunter, it showed Edwards, it showed Beck. It showed their names, which tells me this is unlike any NCAA game you ever played. The players are actually in there now. That's what we're focused on. So at first I thought it was underwhelming because I just thought it was plain Jane. But then knowing that's what they were trying to hammer home, it resonated more.
And I do think that having Michigan front and center makes absolute sense because like we're coming after the year that they won the national title. But I was just curious what you thought. And I mean I understand he hasn't played, he's not starting, but like having Arch Manning on there, I was surprised he wasn't even like kind of in the.
No, he declined to be in the game or whatever.
Oh, that's right. That's
right.
Yeah,
he wants to earn it. I think he'll be a cover athlete one of these days. So
that's absolutely right. You know what we love, Brandon, before we get out of here?
Ice cream.
We do love ice cream, but we love to eat. We love to eat, and I actually right now, another fist bump, in the fridge here in the office, I have a Factor. I believe it is a sweet potato barbecue sloppy Joe type of situation going on, which I'm very, very excited about. So one of the things that I always talk about with Factor is how easy it is. It's only 2 minutes in the microwave. It's never frozen. It's actually chef prepared, and then you just keep it in your refrigerator. So it is a fresh meal. If you watch Surviving Barstool, you saw all the guys learning all the different, I mean, they've got like a steak chimichurri. They've got breakfast. They've got dips. They've got it all. And I love Factor so much because it's easy. Every week I just go pick the menu for whatever I'm feeling, select it, and it shows up to my door. And it's nutritious. It can help you crush your wellness goals. And the summer days are here, Brandon. The sunnier days are here. Like you mentioned, you may be wearing less clothes out and about. Maybe you think, oh, my t-shirt's fitting me a little tight, but I don't have time to make nutritious meals at home. Factor has you covered. So head to factormeals.com/roughness50 and use the code roughness50. You get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month, which is massive. That's a lot of money off. Again, you have to use both the code roughness50 at factormeals.com/roughness50. So use the URL and the code to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Again, I love Factor. I use it almost every single day. Big fan of Factor.
Delicious.
It is so good. They have so many good options. Oh my God. When they had the leftovers from Surviving Barstool and they had like all the different egg scrambles up there. Yeah. My God.
No, it's real food in a package that you generally see that and you think that's just frozen. It's not real food. No, it is. It is.
And like that's what it is an actual like massive advantage for them that it is never frozen. Like they put it, it's in your fridge. It's like you made all these homemade meals and for not that much more money because it comes to you that easily. And then you just pop it in for 2 minutes and you've got a healthy, nutritious, delicious meal.
Delicious. All right. that a good stopping point for everybody? Did you get all the UNLV out of your system?
Well, he said he had other things he wanted to talk about.
I think he meant in the coming weeks.
In the coming weeks
Oh,
and everything
gotcha,
in
gotcha,
months.
gotcha.
Yeah.
You have all your teams lined up?
Yeah, I'll talk about a different team next week probably.
Are you gonna, when there's a new guy to add to the Liam Blutman team?
The Liam guys?
The Liam guys?
We just dropped one. I don't know if you saw that.
Who'd you drop?
She Rice.
Oh, you mean drop? I thought you meant dropped it like, here's a new pair of shoes.
Oh
No, he cut
So
him.
Rasheed Rice no longer a Liam guy.
No,
He cut him from the guys.
Out of control. I tried interviewing him a lot when he was at SMU. Nothing ever materialized.
How many Liam guys are there?
It's a long list.
I think we need the list.
You'll have actual good players on there, and then you'll have guys who are go in college and never end up being anything.
So if you declare a guy who's a freshman a Liam guy and he never pans out, do you take his Liam status away from him?
I think they have it, but essentially they have it in their grave, and it's just a long, a big cemetery of Liam guys that didn't pan out. But
so there's a Liam cemetery. There's a Liam cemetery.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that. Yeah.
The Liam cemetery.
Yeah. Ian Childs, I think, is the number one Liam guy right now. I was tweeting about him and talking about him before he ever played a snap in college football.
Yeah.
And I'm not into recruiting or anything. I don't care about that. When he got to Oregon State, I started hearing a little about him. I started watching and seeing some tape. I was like, yeah, this kid's the real deal. So now he's in Michigan State, and I think he's the number one Liam guy in college football right now.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep. Ian Childs.
All right, Kayce, anything else?
No, I was about to say though, listening to Liam say that he doesn't care about recruiting, that's a problem because now Jack Mack was the leading recruiting guy on this podcast, and now we're just adding another person that doesn't want to talk about recruiting very often.
Don't worry, we have an Ohio State fan. He's going to talk about it plenty.
That's a good point.
True.
Fair. I've never really heard of talk deep about recruiting other than Ohio State, but I guess if you are if you're an Ohio State guy, you will. But
I don't know, recruiting's just kind of boring nowadays.
I agree.
And Portal kind of is recruiting essentially now, so it's easy to get excited.
I mean, Portal is more exciting than high school recruiting.
Yeah,
it's close. And I'd rather just actually get to see a player play against level competition in college before making an opinion about him, being like, this high school tight end's the best thing I've ever seen, and then he has 3 catches in his college career. Good job.
Preach,
Great
brother.
scout.
It's one of the things I get bothered when Ohio State fans or people say Ohio State got to transfer a quarterback from Alabama, Julian Cyan.
Yeah.
No, they just got another. That's a high school guy.
Yeah.
He never played at Alabama.
Yeah.
We don't know if he's good or not. But anyway, neither here nor there. All right, that's a good stopping point. We'll be back next week. Big Ev will be back, and that's all I got. Right?
Yeah.
Happy belated Mother's Day to you, Kayce.
Thank you. I was waiting for that because I gave you shit last year. We were talking yesterday, and you didn't say Happy Mother's Day. I always tell you Happy Father's Day, but whatever.
You could just take the goddamn compliment.
Thank you.
That's unnecessary roughness.